that's why we're so proud tonight to be able to honor Priscilla and Pat, who for such a long time have done such a wonderful job of communicating local history to multitudes of people. And you're going to hear more about that as we go through. What I'd like to do is turn it over to Carol, who's going to talk a little bit about what our criteria is. How do we choose and select the candidates that we bring forth in the award nomination? So, get out here.
And I have to say, isn't this the most beautiful evening? The weather, we are very blessed to have this. So this process, as Jim said, it did not come quickly or lightly. I think every 5 of us took this job very seriously. And I have to say, I worked on a lot of committees. I was once a teacher, and I enjoyed working with this committee. Every time we have a meeting, we would always get there like 15 minutes early, just so we could catch up on each other's lives and talk with each other. And then we would stay extra. So it was a pleasure working with the 5 of us together. So we put out a call for nominations, and we really didn't know how many we were going to get. We got a nice pool of candidates, and so then we developed, well, how are we going to choose a winner with all these very qualified candidates? So we came up with a criteria of 5 different categories. And so we said, well, longevity is really important. You know, is this somebody new to this, or how long have they been in this process, in this field? And then we also looked at original research, which is very important. We looked at the variety of publications that people were in, and then the variety of contributions. Were they just a writer? Did they do presentations? Were they leaders? And then we looked at our 5th category was the extent of community involvement and outreach. And we each then took a nominee, and it was like you were the person who was their advocate. And we did deeper research because the nominees all had a nice application, but we said we want to know more than just what the people who chose to nominate them had to say about them. So we took about a month to dig deep, and each one of us was assigned a person to look into, to come back and be the advocate for that person in front of the committee, to convince everyone that your person was the person who should win. And everybody took that job very seriously. And then we had a rating scale. We went around on a scale of 1 to 5, and we added it all up. And the process was very organized, and it went very smoothly. And so on that final day when we were going to pick our winner, I thought we could be there for hours, but we easily came to a consensus. And I think you're going to agree with our choices after you hear more about the 2 people we chose. Clearly, they are very deserving. So I just wanted you to know that this wasn't just like, oh yeah, I think she's good, let's take her. No, it was very long. Thank you.
What we're going to do now is we're going to first talk about Priscilla Edwards, and we've got a couple people that are going to introduce Priscilla to you. And the presenters of Priscilla, and start with Paul Perreault.
Tonight we're very fortunate to have Lauren Roberts introducing and presenting Priscilla. Lauren is not only a distinguished local historian, but she's also a longtime friend and collaborator with Priscilla. Lauren, a former historian in the town of Day, has been the Saratoga County historian since 2009. She is a member of both the Saratoga County and the New York State 250th Commission, which will celebrate the upcoming 250th anniversary in the state. She is also the second vice president of the Association of Public Historians of New York State. She has known and worked with Priscilla for many years, and both collaborated on the making of a wonderful video called Harnessing Nature, Building the Great Saratoga. Thus, she is uniquely qualified to explain why Priscilla is being honored this evening.
Hi everyone. As I look around the room, I'm thinking there's a lot of uniquely qualified people here who could speak about Priscilla. Half of Edinburg could speak about Priscilla, and a quarter of them are here in the chairs. But, you know, talk might be a little bit more colorful if I handed it over. Oh, I'm just going to grab the remote here real quick. So I am a resident of the town of Edinburg, but I'm not a lifelong resident, as Priscilla is. I grew up pretty far away in the village of Northville, next door. And I've known Priscilla as long as I can remember. She was a member of the church that I grew up in, and she was always at community functions. She was everywhere, and I feel honored that I get to speak about her and all of the contributions that she's made to our community. So Priscilla, as I mentioned, is a lifelong resident of Edinburg. I won't share when you were born. She grew up in Tennetville. Here's the house that she grew up in. Her parents were Ashley and Charlotte Olmsted. And on October 18th, 1959, Priscilla married Jay Edwards. And Priscilla has always had an interest in her family history. Her family has been in the area for a long time. I would call her the default family historian. She's got a wonderful collection of photographs that go back generations of her family members. The stories of her family are also the stories of the Edinburg community. And part of that focus is the woods tradition. Priscilla comes from a long line of loggers, from the stories of the loggers that were felling the trees and transporting them to mills. Farmers, because they didn't just log, they're from all the way from the woods to the mills to transporting them. Priscilla has been a part of all of that. So much so that in the 1980s, Priscilla teamed up with folklorist Fawn Ward and Todd DeGarmo to produce this publication, which included 2 community events along with it. So the Woods Traditions of Saratoga County, which this was actually sponsored, you can see the Saratoga County Historical Society. So actually this group of people that are now called the History Center have been collecting community history for a long time. And Priscilla was a big part of that. So as a public historian, part of our job is really being focused on community history. It's collecting stories of the community, but it's also helping them find ways to tell their own stories, rather than coming in from the outside. And Priscilla is a great example of doing this. It's not easy to do this. You have to gain trust. You have to build relationships. And one of the most challenging things is convincing those people that they have a story worth telling and that their community is unique and it's worthy of being preserved. And I think the example here of the woods tradition, I don't know if Priscilla came about with this with oral histories, but a lot of times I'll go out to do an oral history. Maybe it's a veteran, or maybe it's someone who was a lifelong school teacher. And they'll often say, well, I didn't do anything extraordinary. I'm not a hero. I don't have a great story. And it's up to the job of the public historian to let them know that their stories are important. They make up the total fabric of that community's history. And I think touting the woods traditions of the northern part of our county is part of that. That these people who had a very specific way of life, not just in their jobs, but in their lives. It's important to be collecting this. These are things that are not always collected in a traditional archive. It's not, you know, the wealthy that could read and write, and so they were constantly writing documents, and those survived and they were in our archives. But a lot of this is passed down through family tradition and folklore. And sometimes there are holes in our archives, and we need to work harder to be able to fill those. And this is a great example of one of the things that Priscilla did to be able to fill that hole. This publication, Historic Edinburg, Priscilla was a part of creating this. So in 1992, for the dedication of the Edinburg Rural Museum, so Edinburg has two museums, the Nellie Terrell Museum, and Nellie was Priscilla's predecessor, the first town historian, before Priscilla took over in 1986. And so in 1992, Priscilla worked to produce this book. This is actually a quote from the letter in the first page of the booklet, which was written by Town Supervisor Jean Raymond. Priscilla Edwards, town historian, has given extensively of herself, providing the information and expertise to create this book and the exhibits. That was written in 1992, and it's true up till today. We still have Historic Edinburg Day. The museums are open, and they just keep expanding. The exhibits are new and fresh, so that when people come through, there's something new to look at. You can see Priscilla at one of the Edinburg Days. I think this was 2013 with her grandson. And this is a tradition that's continued in our community, and it helps our community bring together the residents, but also summer visitors. We are a tourist community in the summer because we are on the Saratoga Lake. And so to be able to expand past our residents and share that with the visitors that come to our community is important as well. If anyone has come to Edinburg Day, Historic Edinburg Day, or maybe driven down North Shore Road, you may know about the Copeland Covered Bridge. In 1998, it was taken over by the Edinburg Historical Society from private ownership. It was also placed on the state and national register of historic places. This display here at the top was something that Priscilla has put together. It's a custom-made sign. Who made the sign, Priscilla?
I think we started out with Fred. What's his name?
Well,
Fred Bly. We made the first one for him. We made 4 or 5 around town. And then I think Andre may have made this one by the covered bridge. Yeah.
These are at several historic sites in town. These displays exhibit displays that tell about the history of these sites, so that people who are just driving by and stop and they want to see the bridge have a place to come and do that. Priscilla's been a part of all of the community celebrations I can remember. In 2001, they had the bicentennial of the town. They put together a large celebration, and there's Priscilla in her skirt with her shovel, burying the time capsule. But she really helps to bring together for any commemorations or celebrations. Priscilla's always on the planning crew. She's there for setup. She's there when they tear down. And she really embodies public service and giving up all of those hours for these events. One of the things that impressed me most about Priscilla was how she has brought history alive in our little school, Edinburg Common School. We don't have a lot of kids there, but the kids that have gone through Priscilla's 4th grade local history program have a deep appreciation for history. If you can think about a bus full of 4th graders on a warm, usually June afternoon, and I was privileged enough to ride along on that little bus, and I think I maybe had a 1-year-old at home, so I was probably trying to get out for a nice ride. But the way that Priscilla took these kids around to the sites in their own communities and told them the stories. So 4th grade is when New York State history and then local history come into the curriculum. We know that teachers don't have a lot of time in the classroom. But we also know that telling kids the stories of their own communities, the importance of their own families, being able to relate to the history that happened. A lot of these kids have families that are in the logging tradition. This putting their feet on the ground where history occurred is so important. She takes them to the Sandhill School, the Clarkville Cemetery, which has one of the last surviving veterans of the American Revolution buried there, Samuel Downing. It's incredible. She's created a booklet. These kids, I can remember getting on the bus, and one of the kids says, well, Mrs. Edwards says we're going to see a train today. Train? Yeah, it's called the Underground Railroad. My mom says there's no train in Edinburg. And so when those kids went home and told their parents about Barker's store, which was a stop on the Underground Railroad, and that a small community like Edinburg played a part in the larger important history of New York State and our nation, that changes their perspective on the importance of history in their communities. And that's because Priscilla took the time to create those booklets and bring that to our kids in our schools. Paul mentioned harnessing nature, building the Great Sacandaga. Jason Kemper and I embarked on a long, I'm not sure what we were thinking. We could do a full-length documentary about the creation of the Sacandaga. But Priscilla was so instrumental in learning about that history. She had a memoir from her mother-in-law, who was one of the people displaced by this project. She grew up in Osborne's Bridge, and her life was turned upside down when this happened. She lost her community. She lost the home she grew up in, the church she went to, the school, the cemetery. Those were all gone under the water. And Priscilla has kept those memoirs so that generations later we still know the sacrifice of what happened then. And also she is the keeper of the Bennis collection, which is an amazing photograph collection of photographs that were taken both before and just after the flooding of the valley. She opened her office and let us scan those photos and use them as part of the documentary, and I'm so grateful for her knowledge and all of the resources that she shared with us to make this film as authentic and with the best images possible. So with that, I just want to say that Priscilla has left a nearly 40-year legacy of public history behind in the town of Edinburg. You can't go anywhere in town without seeing her fingerprints on our historic sites. Between the museum exhibits, the hundreds of articles she's written in the Edinburg newsletter, which are now part of her book that just came out last year, My Mountains, My People, the custom signage at all of the historic sites, the historic markers, the beautiful display cases in Town Hall. She's everywhere. She has enriched our community, she's educated our school kids, and she has made our lifelong residents feel that their story is important and that their way of life should be documented and preserved. And she's done it all with humility and without looking for recognition. I know she doesn't like to toot her own horn, so I'm glad that we can do that for her tonight. So Priscilla, thank you. And I just want to mention, this photo is from Sheep to Shawl, which Isabel just told you about. It's happening this week here. This was in the mid-1980s. Priscilla, I love that hair. I'll never get mine at volume. So coming full circle, 40 years later, thank you for all you've done for our community, for our kids, and for public history.
So what we'd like to do on behalf of the Saratoga County History Center, we'd like to present you with this 2024 Public History Award, May 7th, 2024, given by the trustees of the Saratoga County History Center to Priscilla Edwards. This is
Okay.
Okay, Priscilla, you get to say a few words.
This was a total surprise to me. When Warren called me that Friday and told me about it, I said, what? Yeah, I didn't. And Denise, our town's clerk, was so sneaky about this whole thing. But I thank everyone. It's been a total labor of love all these years. It really has. And I've got so many articles yet that I want to write. You know, so Lord willing, the mind will stay with me so that But I wouldn't live anywhere else but Edinburg. I've never lived anywhere else but there, and I wouldn't live anywhere else. That's my town. And Saratoga County is so diversified, and I think a lot of people on this lower end don't realize what it's like in the town of Day, and the town of Edinburg, and even parts of Corinth. I call it Corinth. And, but we're different, we really are, because of our customs, because of our enterprises, whatever. But we love where we are. And we're in the foothills of the Adirondacks. And I know from past experience in some of the committees that I have been on and everything, I know there's a lot of people, as I say, in the lower end of the county that do not realize what it's like to be under the APA, the Adirondack Park Association, their rules and regulations and all the other things that go with it. But it's a different community up there, but we love it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Kind of interesting, but when we first started this 3 years ago, we were never sure that we had one or two winners. Well, in the 3 years we've done it, we've always had two, and there's a reason for that, and that is because there are so many people that are deserving of these awards. And frankly, some of us are of an age, we don't do two a year, we won't get through them all. So what I'd like to do is ask Charlie Kuenzel, who's the former president of the Saratoga Springs History Museum, to come up and introduce the next presenter.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. I just want to reflect a little bit. Last year when I received the award, I was very moved. And the year before, just the idea that the Saratoga County History Center would make these kind of presentations each year was extremely special to me. Not that I was looking to win for it, I never thought I would. But the bottom line is, when you look at history, and I've had a number of years in that area, you got to tell a story, and you don't go out to tell the story to get something special out of it. It's not the Academy Awards, it's not those kind of things. And the story that we tell, I've said this way too many times probably, that our history is more like a quilt. And there's so many different aspects to it. And that's why serving on this committee was so interesting, because we had a lot of different people that did a lot of different things in a lot of different ways. And what did they do? They helped us all tell the story. And that's what we all want to do. At the History Museum, we always say we've been telling the story since 1883. Now, I wasn't there at the beginning, I don't know. But we strive to keep doing that, and I think everybody else in history does the same thing. And in order to truly tell those stories, you have to come at it with a lot of different ways, a lot of different looks. And, of course, our next recipient is Pat Peck, and Heritage Hunters has done a wonderful job with the genealogy, etc. It's an integral part. So that's why this was such a great thing that we were able to honor her tonight. Because we all know in the business, we all know what she's provided, etc. And as far as telling her story tonight, there's no one better than Dave Peck, who's going to come. He's president of Heritage Hunters. And he himself has got a lot of good stories. So I don't have enough time here to tell those things. But let me introduce to you tonight, please, Dave Peck.
So it's great to see such a great crowd here tonight for these two fantastic awardees. I'm a third cousin once removed. I'm not Pat's husband. Most of you know Joe Peck, who is her husband. Anyway, what's written up in here gives you a brief idea of what's been done by Pat. She's had a lifelong interest in genealogy and local history that included formation of heritage hunters in 1993. Now, I didn't really get interested in genealogy until 2007 because for some reason when you're teaching, I was a teacher at high school biology and chemistry, and when you're teaching you don't have too much time to go out and visit cemeteries and so on. So once you do retire, then you got time to maybe do that. Pat led the effort to develop several innovative educational outreach opportunities, including an annual all-day conference on genealogical topics, an annual History Faire, and the creation of the SaratogaGenWeb page with a robust collection of local genealogical databases. In addition, Pat has been a long-time volunteer here in Ballston Spa and was instrumental in the creation of the Irena Wooten Research Library that I guess is upstairs. And so in 2008, I started my interest in genealogy. And I could go back to my great-great-grandparents, but I really didn't know who my great-great-great Peck great-great-grandparents were. So anyway, I went to visit Pat, and by the way, if you don't know Pat, you might know her husband Joe Peck, who's written several books, such as humorous farmer books about a farmer in clean overalls and things like that. Okay, Joe couldn't be here tonight because he's like in a wheelchair now. But anyway, he ran Peckhaven Farm over by Saratoga Lake. Anyway, when I met Pat at the farm, that's Peckhaven Farm, and I told her, you know, I've done some research on my genealogy, and I got out that whiteboard with some of my pedigrees on it, and she didn't say, well, you know, with that and $2, you can get a good cup of coffee. That's what a lot of people said about genealogy. No, she said, oh, that's fantastic, she said, now if you come out behind our barn, maybe I can help you a little bit with going back just a bit further. So we went out behind our barn, and there was Amos Peck, my third great-grandfather, and his wife, Mary Wagman, and they live on Wagman Ridge Road. And not only did she show me that, but she said, now here's another David Peck that I produced. So I had a picture taken with David, and we're right behind our third great-grandparents, and that's the first time I ever met David. And I'm David, so that was kind of coincidental. Anyway, she had a lot of historical artifacts in her house that she's been collecting for years, such as, that's Mary Wagman's picture.
Oh.
Mary Wagman came from Dutchess County and came up here about 1810 or so, and her brothers started that farm. And such as this, it says, agriculture and manufactures are the foundation of our independence, July 4th, 1825. Who was visiting the United States, who was a famous hero in 1825? It was Lafayette, that's right. And so that was made by Ever Wagman. That's Mary Wagman's sister, half-sister actually. So the rest of the cemetery didn't look too good. And so I said to Pat, maybe you can fix this up. And Pat is the kind of person who, when you start to do something, she pitches in. And so she got her family out there. There's Sean Keller with his twin children. Okay. Now, at the time, Sean's wife wasn't there, but they got right to work. There's Sean's wife. Okay. That's Deborah, and she's the president of the Old Saratoga Historical Association in Schuylerville, amongst a lot of other things. All of Pat's children are very successful, by the way, including this one here. And that's Sharon, who has a PhD in education and teaches out near Rochester. What's that?
She teaches in Geneseo.
Geneseo, right. Okay, and those are her two twin boys. Right? That's Schuyler and Asa Peck, named after some ancestral Aces and Schuyler Pecks. There they are again with some of the projects, and a lot of these projects are projects that Pat has a big influence on. Now, you might be wondering what this cemetery looked like after we got done with it. Well, her son David found these fencing, which looks beautiful, and so after we got that set up, then I said, well, we can bring some other relatives here to see their ancestors. So there's my cousin Marion Peck Crandall, and Bill Peck's partner Sue Schultz had a day when we visited, and all those people are descended from Amos and Mary Wagman Peck, or they're married to descendants. The two on the right are married to descendants, including Pat. And by the way, that's Patricia Ann Dunn Peck, right? Now, I think this will match that picture of Priscilla. So, I was looking for my Kramer ancestors, and I looked in Durkee's compilation of cemeteries from about 1910, and I found one that said Conrad Kramer had a stone on Casey Road by a big old elm tree, like 1900. And so I went down Casey Road and I looked and I found an area that was all overgrown. And I said, well, maybe it could be in there. And I looked in there and there's the old stump, and right sticking out of the stump was Conrad Kramer, another like third great grandparent of mine. So I told Pat about it, and I said, it's all overgrown. I'm going to try to fix it up a little bit. She said, well, I'll be willing to help you. So there she is. And so we got that fixed up a bit. And that's all those stones were piled around the old, not the elm tree, but a big old willow tree that was there. And the only way we could find, there were still footstones left that we could match up with the headstones and put them back where they belong. So that was that for now. Pat has always been a good participant in the things that I'm doing. By the way, I feel a little nervous following Lauren up here. Her presentation was fantastic. Anyway, I'll do the best I can. Okay. So these are all relatives of mine and Pat's. Doing a tour of Peck ancestors and relatives that lived in some old homes and so on. This is up in Fort Miller, New York. And you can see that Pat's been involved with history for a long time. This is at the Schuylerville Public Library, where Pat is involved still today. Right, Pat? Yeah. And Joe. This is Pat with her two brothers. And Pat and Joe have been involved in different kinds of reenactments and so on. That's Joe and Pat years ago. And I think this might be at the Schuylerville Mansion in Schuylerville. This is Pat with her two children, two daughters, dressed up to do some kind of reenactment there. And if you've ever been on Pat's back porch, you'll see a lot of old farm implements that she and Joe have collected. And also on that group is Fletcher Blanchard, right? Who was the newsletter writer for Heritage Hunters before you came in. By the way, Pat is the one that got me into this job. I started going to these Heritage Hunters meetings, and she said, "Oh, you're really interested in genealogy. You should be the president." I didn't have a president then. And I said, "Oh, no, I'm busy. I have to do a lot of traveling. I couldn't do it." Maybe in a couple of years. Ask me in a couple of years. Well, a couple of years went by pretty quick. Anyway, there she is with Fletcher Blanchard, her predecessor, I guess, at the newsletter writer. And I was involved a little bit, plus Pat, with the making of the Bacon Hill Forgotten Crossroads video, which turned out terrific. And all the Pecks up at Bacon Hill got involved in sponsoring and providing money. And here she is at her 50th wedding anniversary. Now, she was married in '62, and she's been married almost 62 years, right? And that was at the Quaker Springs Firehouse. And Joe was telling some of his stories. He's a fantastic storyteller. And here we have, that's at the 50th wedding anniversary again. Okay, with Sean Miller, who's a big-time Saratoga Town Historian. And there they are, another picture. Okay, so here's shows you how much of a family person that Pat is. So in Reader's Digest, they had a big contest about who has the best pets in America. And who won? Pat Peck. And so what it says is, forever friends, Patches and Floyd. And just a few days ago, I was in Saratoga, and here's what Pat does that she does best, is volunteer to promote heritage hunters and Saratoga County history. And that was a terrific day at the Saratoga Library History Faire. And so there she is.
Pat, it's been a real pleasure knowing you all these years and all the support that you've given the Heritage Hunters, but also to Brookside Museum. She's been a volunteer here forever. I didn't say forever, for a long time. And the thing about Pat that always impresses me is she's so kind to people. I mean, even if people are giving difficulties in terms of getting information, I know that happens occasionally. You are always smiling, and you always do your work with a smile. So I want to thank you for that. So on behalf of the Saratoga County History Center, we'd like to present this 2024 Public History Award, May 7, 2024, by the trustees of the History Center, to Pat Peck.
the same challenge that Priscilla has, shrinking. I do want to thank everyone. Thank you, Dave, for the kind words. Thank those on the committee. Thank those that nominated me. It really is a tremendous honor. It was a real shock when Jim called, and I said, no, I don't think you've got the right person. At any rate, I'm very grateful for everyone involved in this program, for all my friends and co-workers, family members that have come out. It's good to see everybody, including folks that I worked with at Cornell Cooperative Extension. It's been 25 years now. Thank you to folks and all the family members who have come out to support me. I'm so grateful for the many role models that I've had from family members, from co-workers, from friends and neighbors and people in the organizations that I've served. They have been an inspiration to me. They've guided me. I'm very active in the Old Saratoga Historical Association and have been involved with our 18th Century Days, candlelight tours, initiated a scholarship for high school seniors there, and I've produced a town calendar since 1985 with pictures of days gone by and filled with little tidbits sprinkled through the pages. And the inspiration for that came from another role model of mine, was Jeannie Waters from the town of Wilton, who produced a calendar, and she guided me along, got me started in that project. And I can remember Mrs. Ostrander was in our group, and she said, oh, that would never go, would never be able to sell any of those. And we did 3 printings of that first calendar. 800 some calendars, I think. So I'm always looking for pictures from the town of Saratoga, so that is really I have some old photos. I'm looking for pictures and something interesting that happened in our town over the years. And I did, as Dave said, I was a founding member of Heritage Hunters in 1993 with Dan Messick. Had the idea of bringing people together and starting this organization. And several folks, charter members with me, are here tonight too, and they've provided a lot of inspiration for me. We mentioned Fletcher Blanchard was a very active gentleman in our group. He's since passed on, but he got me started doing a newsletter after he said he produced it long enough, and I'm looking for a producer now. But I really appreciate all the contacts, the support, the role models that you folks have been. I appreciate my family for their support, my children for being dragged through cemeteries. Lots of going through early records and so forth, and they've been very supportive to me too. So I want to thank folks for coming out. Thank you folks for putting this program together. It's been a very, very nice evening, and we're always looking for more members in Heritage Hunters. Or volunteers who would like to help out here at Brookside. We have a wonderful research library upstairs. We've got a nice collection here. We're always looking for folks to help in a variety of ways. So,
and you're always looking for more articles for the newsletter.
That's true, that's right. So any of you that have local history related to Saratoga County, we do a 24-page newsletter 5 times a year. I'm always looking for material for that. So if you've got an interesting family story, I'd love to have that. I know that we did a little feature on Priscilla last year when her book came out, and that was really nice to have that sort of information. So whatever you have out there, we're ready to put it into print for you and give you an extra plug. But thank you very much.
Away my closing argument. We do a lot of presentations on that. We have a lot of different activities. We do communities, which is a favorite of me. And to be able to do this, have passions of 2 wonderful ladies that put their life and have the passion for it, and just have the passion that we're at. We we've all had. And some of us want to have the passion, and boy, the amount of effort that Priscilla and Pat put, what I'd like to do about that for Priscilla and Pat, I think it's just wonderful and inspiring for the rest of us. So, again, I want to thank you. What I'd like to do is that Priscilla and Pat come on one last time. Stand up, stand together.